Protea Glen Crisis Committee has expressed disappointment that the core stakeholders did not show up for a meeting to discuss the way forward following a storm that struck the south of Johannesburg last week. Well, approximately 1,600 homes have been affected in the area. Committee spokesperson Phelelani Sindane says that while the National Home Builders Registration Council and the City of Cape Town were represented at the meeting yesterday, property developers Chiron and Cosmopolitan Projects, as well as the banks, were absent. He says numerous complaints against developers have been ignored. And now from the Protea Glen Crisis Committee, we are joined in studio by Phelelani Sindane. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Essentially, in your view, why do you think the banks were absent?
Well, we have no idea why the banks did not come to the meeting, which they were formally invited, but we believe that they have probably an agenda or something. We have no idea. Any answer to that will be just a mere speculation because they did not even send an apology or anything.
Okay, now we do know that, correct me if I'm wrong, the committee has been writing letters since the year 2010 complaining about the houses and building infrastructure. What has happened since then?
Nothing has happened, and let me correct this. Since 2010, it was people from different streets who were writing letters to the bank and the developers, and they were ignored because it was just few people from a particular street and individuals. So this time around, after the storm, we came together as a community of Protea Glen to say we need to speak to the developers, we need to speak to NHBRC, and that's when the committee was formed immediately after the storm, not from 2010.
So individuals had been writing letters to the banks and the developers with regards to infrastructure of their houses that had been built?
Yes, and there are emails that I have received from different people who are residents that they have written emails from 2015 before they could even occupy the houses. The structure had already shown signs that it is going to collapse. One gentleman said to me after they had got into the house, they came in and they were putting on the curtain rails. While he was drilling the wall, the drill bit, it drilled right up until outside. So you ask yourself, what kind of a quality of a home is that cannot even be able to deal with a drill bit? So those are the problems that we are experiencing, and people have sent me emails, in particular sending them to Cosmopolitan, and Cosmopolitan will either ignore or come. But the greatest concern is the NHBRC, because these homes, NHBRC has approved that these homes are of quality and of good standard, and it's contrary. Now, we want NHBRC to come on board, which they also, in our first meeting, they did not show up. They only came on our second meeting, and they sent junior people. Now, we need decision makers, not junior people.
And meeting with the developers, what was their response to this crisis that has happened?
Cosmopolitan, when they first came, they said they are going to assist with anything that we are going to ask them to assist us with. But when we ask them questions pertaining to the structure, pertaining to the quality of the homes, unfortunately as well, they sent junior people who could not even make decisions, and they wanted to go back and consult, and then they started changing their story after the meeting. And we are just in a situation and in a position where we are disappointed, but we are appealing to now that everybody who has their homes built by Cosmopolitan, let us come together, because it's not only in Protea Glen. I believe that people from Cosmo City, somewhere in Randburg, they are experiencing the same problem that we are experiencing. So if we can come together as residents of Gauteng, those who reside in homes built by both Chiron and Cosmopolitan, we work together and then we start engaging with them. At this point in time, we are willing to engage with them. We want them on the table, because it's not proper that we'll keep on closing the roads and inconveniencing everybody where we know who is the culprit in this particular case. So we want them to come on board, but if they keep on ignoring us, then we will take this matter into the second phase.
It's quite concerning, as residents are basically paying for homes that they cannot stay in. With that being said, who then essentially is going to be held accountable? Is it the banks? I mean, residents have to be paying the banks, but at the same time, they didn't build the houses.
That is why we want the banks on board as well, because remember, the developers, which is Cosmopolitan and Chiron, particularly in Protea, those are the developers. And if the developers, they can come on board together with the banks, because they work together, so that we find an amicable solution into this. Now what is happening, you find insurance companies are coming to do the assessment, but then they expect people to pay the access fee. And people are saying, but we cannot pay the access fee on a house that we've been complaining about before we could even occupy, you know. So that is why we are saying we need a broader forum where every stakeholder will be represented, and we raise our views, we find a common ground, all of us, so that we can find an amicable solution into the entire problem. But this thing, it goes far deeper than you can see. You know, it was just a blessing in disguise that the storm had come and ravaged the homes. And the saddest part is that some of the homes within those that have been built by Cosmopolitan, there is no foundation. It's homes that have been built on a slab, and people are paying up to 650,000 for those homes, and they cannot even sustain the slightest storm. And yet you are paying 650,000. One lady said to me after our public meeting, she said, Phelelani, the insurance company is refusing to pay because I had occupied in December and they haven't debited. Now I don't have a home and they don't want to take responsibility. So what must she do now? At the end of this month you are going to debit, but that person is not occupying the house because the house has been demolished. So these are the issues that we are dealing with. So we are appealing to the stakeholders to come on board, but particularly everybody who has his house built by Cosmopolitan and Chiron. Let's come on board. Let's engage them. And if they don't want to, remember in the olden days, there was something that was called rent boycott. We haven't reached that decision as yet, but there will come a time where we reach a decision where we say we are not going to pay. But what the community of Protea Glen Range have tasked us to communicate very clearly is that Protea is a developing area. And up to now, they've built up to 31 extensions. There's still extension 32, 34, 33, and 35 that still needs to be developed. And we are saying, Chiron, together with Cosmopolitan, they are not going to continue building until this issue has been resolved. And if needs be, we are going to blockade everything. There'll be a complete shutdown if they come and think that they are going to build. That message must be clear.
Definitely, that's quite a concerning issue there. Of course, that was Phelelani Sindane from the Protea Glen Crisis Committee. Of course, this is on the backdrop of that terrible storm that hit the south of Johannesburg just a couple of days ago. Thank you very much for joining us this morning in studio.